Welcome to the HARP Bioherbicide Podcast. I'm Dr. Alex Danis, and for today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Tim Maloney. Tim founded Agritech Consulting, an independent research company that has research field sites in Wisconsin and Illinois. Tim has spent his career working in agronomy, studying the science and technology of producing crops. Dr. Maloney spoke with me about his work running trials for large and small companies, and about what it takes to run 300 to 400 different research trials each year across a 900-acre farm. Can you please introduce yourself and tell me who you are and what you do?
My name is Tim Maloney, and I'm a research agronomist, involved in anything and interested in anything that increases yield, simply put. So I would say my background is I'm a very classically trained agronomist. I'm getting old enough to where I can actually say that. And I'm very much interested in soils, soil chemistry, soil biology, genetics, just putting all the pieces together, and planting dates, tillage equipment, just everything that I think I can tweak and manage and monitor, I'm interested in. So I'm a production agronomist. My data would be very applicable to Joanne Farmer down the road. They could come to a field day, look at what we're doing, and they literally could go, oh, I'm going to go home and try that. So that's my background.
There's a bunch of things there I want to follow up on. You said that you are a classically trained agronomist. And what does that mean to you? Because we're going to talk a little bit about the future of agriculture, but what does that mean to sort of have that foundation as a classically trained agronomist?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because nowadays we're too hung up in technology without knowing basics. And that bothers me. I could fly drones over everything every day of the week, and I'd have some beautiful pictures, and it would create data. So what? I mean, really? Okay, and there could be a genius that would just manipulate the data to do NDVIs and such. Great. But if we haven't chosen the right genetics, had good weather, had correct soil health, had correct fertility, you utilized all the biostimulants, all the biology that we could, so what? It has to all come together, and then my thought is technology gets added onto it. So classical in my mind is I can balance nutrition on crops. I can calculate nitrogen needs. I can calculate what phosphorus comes out in residue. That's what I mean by classical. You have to know the basics before you can go forward. So it's just, my background is very production oriented. And I just give an example. When we work fields, I work them in different directions every year. Why? Soil compaction. Well, soil compaction is huge. And it doesn't mean you can't, it could be something that's 6, 8, 12 inches down that's going to affect root development. So I am just very careful in just making sure every potential negative is not covering up a positive that we could be looking at.
And you mentioned bringing farmers out for field days, looking at data. Can you give everyone sort of an idea of what does your day-to-day look like? It sounds to me like you're running a lot of field trials, you're testing out different things. How do you do all that? How do you manage all that? Sort of what does your job look like?
When the snow does fly in January, I'm pretty happy. When the growing season's here, it's busy. So we have typically between 300 and 400 research trials going on each year.
Wow.
And it involves, actually, my whole family's involved. I've got younger children that are full-time, my lovely wife, my mother-in-law, an aunt. I actually have only one person that's not related to me, and I've known him from high school. So it involves us to work together, but work together so that we all have a common goal. I can't just have people coming in here work here that aren't really, it's just a job to them. They have to be involved. So a typical day in spring is prep. Planting is easy. But if we're not ready for it, if we haven't made sure that planter is up to top working condition, we're going to have some seed placement issues. And I've just thrown the whole study out there. So our winters are just full with maintaining and rebuilding everything we have. Because when spring comes, I don't want breakdowns.
Yeah.
So a given day is just, we're focused. Everything, all our research trials are within 3 miles of the house.
Wow.
Yes. Now I do have some off location, but those are kind of reserved for special things.
Sure.
I can't get into it in a 4-wheeler or a gator or whatever. It's too far. I don't want to waste my time in my truck driving to a location.
Yeah.
I want to be, so we're in the field all the time because we want to make sure. If I have a trial that I'm doing vigor ratings at, I do that trial the same time, the same day. So if I'm looking at a heart trial, it's going to be 10 o'clock in the morning, and that's when I look at it because I want the sun in the same place. You have to manage all that because I don't want to look at things because my eyes are what I trust. I know what green and yellows and reds are. We have to be able to have a feel for what's going on out there, not like, oh, looks good. So our day they're full.
And I love that you're really, I can't comprehend how you're managing this with 300 to 400 different trials where you are trying to really, I love that you said you trust your eyes, you're trying to get there and see the results of this. Can you give me an idea of the scope of different types of trials you are doing? Because that's 300 to 400, you can get a lot of different things in there.
Yes. So we have to start with genetics. So we have a number of inbred trials or hybrid trials. I've got 3 seed companies that I get most of my seed from. Well, I also put on hybrid trials for them. So I can give them another set of data where I like this one, I don't like this one. I need to know whether a hybrid is fungicide, whether it enhances yield or nitrogen or what. I have to know in advance what these varieties and hybrids can do before I'm going to put them in a trial. So if I need a racehorse, I need to know what that one is. So I do that kind of work. Our local co-op, I rely on them for my fertilizer. So some of that we just don't have the time for it. So I need them to apply bulk fertilizer. So my exchange with them is, well, I can do some trials for them, looking at some of their technologies they're selling to their growers. In exchange for that, I need them to float fertilizer out to the last row of the field. I need them to be consistent. I need their equipment to be good. So all these fine details is what we're looking at all the time.
And what kinds of organizations and companies are you looking, or are you partnering with? Because it sounds like everyone from your local co-op to a giant seed organization, are you working with big companies, startups, what does that spread as well of partners look like?
Well, that's a good question because that can go back to the answer I didn't give you on the type of trials, which that's okay. It all goes together. So herbicide trials, which are kind of boring, but weeds are either dead or not in my book. So herbicide trials, fertility trials, genetic difference trials, biostimulant trials, foliar trials, soil blight trials, stress management trials, drought trials. I have 8 different soil types on the farm here. So,
oh, wow.
Yes, it's very unique. So I have 2% organic matter soils to 30% organic matter soils. You know what that does? Somebody comes to me and says, I need to put seed stress, early germination stress on something. Okay, I'll go no-till in a heavy soil. Boy, you can put some stress on it. I have something that's it's drought tolerant. Okay, I can put it on a sandier soil for drought tolerance. So the types of trials we do are all with whoever everybody's worked at, whether it's one of the big ones out of Germany or whatever, with looking at their standard broad spectrum technologies, or I am very fortunate to have an equal number of, I don't like the word startup because it may have just come into business, but whoever is in charge of that didn't start up yesterday.
Right.
They have been thinking and dreaming about it for 20, 30 years. Maybe they just got it into production last year. It's not a startup. That just means when they really started marketing it. But I am fortunate where I've got some technologies that probably aren't going to go on the market for 5, 6, 7 years, but I'm playing with them here. And I do mean playing with them. So some of these are very, how about in their infancy would be a better word. They've got something, they feel strongly about it, but they just don't know, is it going to be something you put on the seed? Is it something they should put in furrow in the ground at planting? Or maybe they should put it on as a side dress, or maybe they should put it on as a foliar spray. Who knows? We can test it.
And so you've created this farm that has this really unique capability to do this testing with all these different types of environments in one place. And if I'm correct, it's around 900 acres. Is that right?
Approximately, yes.
So how did you get to here? What path led you to having these 900 acres to play with all of these different technologies in?
A very tolerant wife.
That's a good answer.
I'm very fortunate. I grew up in Illinois on a farm in Illinois, northern Illinois, and my parents sold their farm to Walmart back in the late 70s. Okay, it was a good idea for them, but not for the one kid in their family that actually wanted to continue on.
Yeah.
So my joke with people is it took me almost 20 years before I met my wife, and I was fortunate that her dad, which is where I'm at right now, their farm was a Wisconsin dairy farm. So wow. I was very fortunate upon meeting her. Her dad was a dairy guy, loved cows, didn't like crops. Guess who his daughter met? Somebody who loves crops. So upon meeting him, well, I'll plant your corn. I'd love to. Really? So I did tillage for him. He was thrilled. So it was a good match. So now we are on the home farm, but fortunately over the years, we have been able to acquire land, immediately adjacent to it and then adjacent to it, that we've been able to kind of pull it all together. And we've been very blessed, that's for sure.
Is there still a dairy farm running there as well, or?
Well, actually, the farm actually was founded in 1840.
Oh, wow. Oh, it goes way back.
Way back. So Karen's, my wife Karen, her family, it was one of the founders of this area. It's a small area. We're not far from Milwaukee, Chicago, Madison, Rockford, but we kind of are. We're kind of in the middle of this quiet area. So the dairy barn is still here. We've done a lot of work to keep the old buildings looking nice and repaired while integrating, modern agriculture.
And that actually, I think, is a great segue to sort of the more modern technology focused questions I wanted to ask, because as you were saying, the tech doesn't work if you don't have a good basis in the science and the understanding of what is actually happening. But as you and I were talking about right before we started this call, technology is where so much of agriculture is headed. So where do you think technology can play an important and helpful role in agriculture?
Okay, well, 20 some years ago, I was working with biostimulants. I was working with certain biologicals that had some promise. They were kind of a disaster out in the field because nobody knew how to handle them, and the manufacturing was not really good. You'd get a jug of this material that did well in a greenhouse, but you couldn't even pour it out of the jug. Oh. So what did technology do? Stainless steel vats, fermentation. The quality of manufacturing now is unbelievable. Just there's no error in it. It is just amazing. So when we get a product to test, it is as pure as water. It flows. So technology has been a tremendous boom towards finding a hidden area of agriculture that we knew had to be there, but we couldn't really isolate enough to really give it its best due.
Yeah.
So technology has been just amazing on giving us, we're kind of going retro, but we're not. But it's like, Dodge makes a Challenger now that looks just like the one I remember in high school. Well, it looks like the same car. It's not.
No.
It stops better. It accelerates better. It does everything better, even though it looks like the old, but the technology is making it better. So that's what technology is doing to agriculture. It's giving us the ability to, I mean, I never dreamed that I could have a tractor drive itself. I don't need that. Oh my gosh. Until you do it, you don't know. Our combines, they're self-propelled. You just get in there, you can concentrate on watching, observing, making notes, let it drive. So that technology has been amazing. So technology is good, but you still have to have the basic foundations to make it better.
You touched on something there at the beginning of that answer about moving things from sort of the greenhouse to the field and that transition from going sort of micro to macro. What are some of the biggest issues that people run into as they try and take that thing that works amazingly in the one pot in the greenhouse and then put it on 100 acres out in the field?
Good. Greenhouses are wonderful. They're temperature controlled, humidity controlled, moisture controlled, sunlight. It's a controlled environment. It is great for testing in small pots, but you have to get it out in the world. Now, some research tries to take that greenhouse effect and go out to the field, and it doesn't work. Mm. You need to, my thought is in agriculture and research, you need to encompass all variability to make it consistent, not isolate variability out. So if it's a dry year, let's see what it does. If it's a wet year, let's see what it does. I don't want to take that out. Leave it. If you want to make it perfect, do it in the greenhouse. But out in it. So how do you control variability, but then enhance what sometimes replication? Make sure you have uniform plots. Make sure you're maintaining proper tillage, reducing compaction, basic soil fertility. I don't know how many trials that I'm asked to look at, and the pH is out of whack. It's like, you know what? You've just ruined that study.
Yeah.
They don't understand the basics, so they want to put all the technology to it, and they wonder why it didn't work. So technology works, but you have to have the good foundation to go with it.
How long does it take if you have a new product that you're testing and you want to do that, right? You want to make sure that it works in a wet year, in a dry year, and doing all this and encompassing all that variability. To me, that sounds like it's going to be a 5-10 year process to go from something leaving the greenhouse. Is that sort of that right scale? Is it faster? Is it slower? What does that take?
I think that's possible, but nobody can wait that long nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, it's financially in these infancy companies, it's make or break. They have investors, and these investors need a return on it. So I always say you need to test it with people that know how to test it.
Yeah.
And I'm confident with what I do because it's what I do. I don't do anything else. This is what I do. So if I'm confident with something, I have people come out, take a look at it. If you don't take a look at it, then you don't really care what you think about it. So I encourage people, as much as it's an added stress on my schedule, when people come out to look at their materials, I learn something because I know where they're coming from then, but then they're like, well, we know it works. Tell us what you're seeing. And then we walk down plot by plot. And I'm saying, what do you see here? Well, I think it looks greener. Now, look at this. It is greener. So it's just, you have to get it in the field to test it. Yeah. And if you test it, I'm comfortable with 2-3 years of data. But I'm also comfortable if I see something in year one that I think has promise, I'll tell people, I think you got something good. And then you go from there.
So switching a little bit to HARP specifically, how did you get involved in testing HARP products?
Actually, I probably get things that I don't know of. So I'll have other organizations that I kind of subcontract work out. And I'd be like, oh, that was great. What was that? I mean, it was like X42. I don't know. But I have, through Robin Ross at Agnessis Consulting, I have actually a more direct connection because we've had some specific trials through her here. So I'm not saying I haven't had theirs, but hers were much more specific. So that's my connection.
That's great. What do you find to be the most surprising part of your job when you are running these trials? Is it, surprising that there's sometimes a great product that you didn't expect, or is it surprising the number of things that fail? What's the most surprising aspect of the work that you do?
Anything that increases growth, I'm interested in. I'm called what I would say I'm an early season person. Early season is so important to me, where the second half of the season, it's only responsive to whatever happened in the early part of the season. So first half of the season, we can actually impact change. The second half, we can put crop protection on to basically maintain whatever we did to start the progress. So early season, when I see something at like V3, V4, and I see an improvement in vigor, I can't wait to harvest that thing. So those are the things that I like. When rarely, if I don't see it, does it ever show up as increase in yield? I walk through these plots all the time, and I've just taken, some of my notes are not very fancy. I might walk through yes, I still use paper and pencil, but when I go through, I might do like a 0 or a plus or a plus. And it sounds funny but when I'm going through a trial and I see something like it, I give it a plus. I'll come through again. I'm like, I did see something. And then I really want to know what that did. So that's the exciting part for me, is when I've put, I like trials that some approach trials to take everything out and see what rises up from the bottom. There's not a farmer in this world that can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Farmers need to put their best management forward, and they want to know what comes up above that. So I'm kind of the BMP, the best management practice. I don't want to skimp on something hoping that somebody's product's going to work.
Right.
It's kind of like having a no nitrogen check. Okay, well, you're going to beat that. How about let's use our proper fertility? Does something get better than that? Those are the ones that the producers are hungry for.
It's so clear the experience that you have in doing this, from just the fact that you're doing so much of this visually and manually. And I love that 0 plus scoring system, because it's a yes or no, right? For farmers, it's got to be, does it work or doesn't it? And that's really what it comes down to. If it's a 0.5% increase in yield, actually that might be good. But if it's this little thing that's significant, but not something they can visually see, not something that has an impact on their output, it doesn't matter. So I love that that's sort of your experience, and your decades of doing this really allow you to make those decisions and to recommend the right things. And so I think with that, what do you see as the biggest challenges for farmers in general moving forward that you're hoping some of the things that you are trying might be able to help mitigate for them?
I'm hoping this, you can correct me on this or just ask for more, but I'm hoping we use technology as the tool that it is. It is an amazing tool. Auto guidance, drones, flyovers, we do all that. But I don't want technology to replace good common sense.
Yeah.
And my worry is that we're going to supersede all this technology onto poor management, and we're going to lose the basics. And we can't throw genetics out we can't throw it out the door.
Yeah.
We have to maintain genetics, disease resistance, herbicide. We can kill anything weed-wise nowadays, but there's a timing thing.
Yeah.
So, you can double the rate and kill the weeds, but maybe you lost yield because you waited 2 weeks too late. So we can't use technology to supersede good management.
Yeah.
Good management is going to make technology look even better.
And is there anything that you see coming down the line from the field, from companies, from, I guess, just sort of sentiment in the agriculture community at large that is hopeful there that, there are people really sort of sticking to that sort of management first idea?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess for a good example is farmers have so many different decisions to make.
Yeah.
And every decision they make is expensive.
Yeah.
Seed is expensive. Herbicides are expensive. Fertilizer is expensive. Go look at a new tractor. Ouch, they're expensive. So
Yeah.
they're in business to try to make money.
Yeah.
It's okay to say that. Everybody has a job because they have people to feed at home.
Yeah.
That's good. And that gives you something to do.
Yes.
But with that expense, there's some things that so many companies I've been working with, the approach they're doing is this plant health aspect, which is this huge billion-dollar word, but is so essential in agriculture now. So I have a couple of companies that I work with that have seed applied products, but they don't tell the farmer what's on them. And that is great. Now you're not keeping something from them. You're not confusing them.
Interesting.
So technology. It used to be you'd have a fungicide on a seed corn for, a pythium. Well, now it's 3 and 4 fungicides. There's talc. There's maybe some biostimulants. There's some biology. Now we've got GMO mixed in there. They don't need to know all that. They need to know that their seed's protected.
Yeah.
Likewise, you go out with your herbicides. You'd say, well, I know I have to kill weeds. So at V3, V4, I kill my weeds. But look at the technology with adjuvants. It's amazing. The stickers, the spreaders on to make them work better in less than ideal mist drift control. All these, we don't need to know. Okay, we need to know it, but we need to streamline what we're doing. So if there's a product that works, then add it with the adjuvant. I've got a number of adjuvant studies where we're adding it in there. It's a better adjuvant, but it's got these benefits in there. Or we have a herbicide. How about adding micronutrients to it? So it's enough to say, well, this is a micronutrient package for soybeans. Good. But then we can tweak it. It can be just fertility, or we can put some biostimulants in there, or we can put some biology in there. That's the beauty of all this, is we're putting technology in there, but we're trying not to confuse the options that we have. So
I really like that in a way it's a very farmer first approach of just make their lives easier, make their lives easier in whatever way possible.
So when I have somebody that says, I have this product that works great, and it's let's say a V9, so the corn's about 5 feet tall, and it's like, great idea, but nobody's putting stuff on their corn at that height.
Right.
So we need it. Can we put it back to the herbicide timing, or can we delay it to the fungicide timing? We have to work with what they're doing, because to adopt something new is like, okay, I know I have the expense, but now you're asking me to do it at a different timing. That requires a lot more. I mean, if you're farming 10 acres, that's one thing, but when you're farming 10,000, it's not possible. So with technology, it's like, all right, let's get our timings down and let's do it at when it works well in their production system.
This is kind of similar to a question I asked you before, but why do you do this? What keeps you motivated in what is a very hard job of managing all these different tests? You're farming, but in a way you're farming 400 different farms all at once in one season. What keeps you motivated to keep doing this?
I love watching things grow. So my youngest daughter and I have a little rolling rack that we have cactus growing on it. We like things. I love things that grow. Ask me about trees. I plant trees all the time because I love watching trees grow. So I just do it because when you go out in the spring after winter and you get that first warm day and you can smell the organic matter out in the field, I can't explain it to anybody. That is the most, it's like honeysuckle in the spring, but it's the dirt's coming alive. And I know it's another year. at this time of year, after we've harvested and we will work the fields, you can smell that same smell, but it's going to say goodnight to you. It's like, go rest. I'll come back to you next year. So it's just that watching things grow it's awesome. There's no downside to it.
I love that. I think that's the perfect ending, encapsulating note. Is there anything I haven't asked you? Anything about the work that you do that you want to say that I haven't given you the opportunity to?
No, I just keep talking forever, but it's a good thing. I mean, I have my family all around me, so I mean, I'm living everything I ever wanted to. But the work's hard. But when we can see something do better, and when you're like when I was harvesting plots this morning, you know, in the combine at this time with plots, it's just weights. You know, it's like 100 pounds of grain. All of a sudden you get one that's 130. It's like, whoa, I want to know what that one was. So that's the excitement of it. You get to see all this going throughout the season. This time of year, it's like, okay, we have something that might have promise. And that's the excitement of it right there.
Yeah, this is the results moment. This is where you get to see everything that, like, what have you been doing all year? You get to actually finally see what worked, what didn't work. That has to be super exciting.
Yeah. And then of course the downside is everybody's asking for data right now. It's like that's kind of it's like I love to do it all in the same day, but you can't. But it's still, when you start going through the numbers, you pull the numbers out the combine and you start to see, it's like, wow, there's something that really went on there. It isn't just good yielding. It's like, whoa, it yielded better than what we were trying to do better. And that's good.
Well, that's also incredible what you just so quickly mentioned there, that you're getting the numbers off the combine, that we're at a point now that, like, it's taking it and weighing it all at the same time. Like, that, I think, is something that truly I don't think people, and including me, outside of the agriculture space, realize how connected and evolved all of these tools have gotten. So, like, that's incredible to me that you can finish, you know, collecting in one field and basically immediately have the data. That's so cool.
Yes. Now, immediate, but I still have to download it and all that. It's okay.
Sure.
But my other alter ego is I love mechanicals. So we've built most of the equipment we've had here.
Really?
Yes, we have some bought research equipment, but most of what we have, our big plot combine, we built it. So we built it out of a commercial combine and just made it exactly what I wanted when I went to the field. So, because the mechanics are very important as far as what can I measure, and you want to be able to, at this time of year when you're harvesting, you don't want to be wasting the grain on the ground.
Yeah.
You want to collect every grain because that's your yield. That's what you're trying to see if there's a difference. And so the maintenance, the rebuilding, that'll be coming up in what we think is the off season. It's just a different season.
I know. It sounds like I know you were mentioning that you have this team that is, you know, mostly all your family, but it sounds like you need hundreds of people to do this. I'm amazed you do it with the team of the size you have.
There are days, but we get along, so it's good. And then I have another weakness that I love old Pontiacs. So, yes. So for the brief time, and everybody that knows me, I'm a little annoying, but I love Pontiacs of the 1960s. So that's kind of, my wife has encouraged that because it gives me something that isn't farming. So, and research. So it's when we have a few times a year that we can go out and take a drive on a Saturday night or something like that, it's kind of fun. So.
Oh, that's what a great hobby, again, to sort of take you into another space, but it's still that same tinkering, building, testing. Yeah. It's all the same realm.
Yeah. Well, and you can pretty well guess what we do when we're driving around, don't you? We're looking at fields of corn and soybeans and everything else, seeing how does everything compare out there.
That wraps up this episode of the HARP Bioherbicide Podcast. Special thanks go out to Dr. Tim Maloney and, of course, to our listeners. For more information on today's topic and HARP Bioherbicide's mission to provide a new, environmentally safe and sustainable approach to weed control, you can visit harpbio.com. I'm Dr. Alex Danis, and we'll see you next time.